Thank you, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here to talk about this incredible film. Mindgamers is an epic journey into the ways that science and technology can radically change the way we connect as human beings. But in many ways, this is already happening. There's already 2.3 billion people connected on social networks worldwide. So we have more connections than we've ever had, but interestingly, something's missing. The AARP estimates that we're between 2 and 4 times lonelier than we were just 50 years ago. The interesting thing about connection is it's not just about the quantity of connection. It's actually about the quality of connection. If you think about the way that we interact with each other on social networks, it's about data and information. It's about tweets and graphs and updates. But if you think about the most meaningful, the most memorable moment that you've had with another person, how much of that was about data? And how much of that was about a felt sense of connection, about intimacy, about trust, about presence? So is this a fundamental flaw with technology? I don't believe so. I actually think that technology is whatever we design it to be. And the point that I'd like to make in this short talk is that not only can technology be in support of deep and meaningful human connection, but arguably, it's one of the single most important ways that technology can serve humanity. The first thing to point out is that researchers are continuing to show that human connection is not a luxury, it's actually a necessity. It's fundamentally important for our health and our well-being. There's a study that's been running for the last 75 years called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. And it's been following a group of people from birth into old age. It's perhaps the single most extensive exploration into what it means to be a happy and healthy human being. One of the principal investigators of that study, his name is George Valiant, spent 30 years looking at the data. He was asked to summarize his findings, and what he said was short and to the point. He said, "Warmth of relationships throughout life have the greatest positive impact on life satisfaction." But he said something else, something even shorter that has continued to stick with me to this day. He said, "Happiness is love. Full stop." But for me, this is not just about happiness. There's a quote that I love from the United Nations. It's the first line of the UNESCO Constitution. And it says, "Since wars begin in the minds of men, it's in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed." For me, this is a clear recognition at the highest levels of world governance that external conflict begins as internal conflict, and that we can actually solve our global crises from the inside out by changing the way we connect to ourselves and changing the way we connect to each other. But this isn't a new idea. Religions and spiritual traditions have been saying the same thing for thousands of years. And these mystics, these seers, these luminaries, they're like the Michael Jordans of human potential. And what they point to is a capacity to actually realize that we're not just connected to our friends and to our family, but at a fundamental level, we're connected to our enemies. We're connected to every single person on this planet. And the issue is not finding a way to make us feel more connected. What they suggest is the issue is removing the false sense that we ever were not connected. In the words of the Dalai Lama, love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. So how do we do this? How do we scale love? The Dalai Lama might say, okay, well, we got to get everyone to meditate. And there's others that would agree. And I'm a daily meditator. I think it's amazing if more people could meditate. But this is a 3,000-year-old human invention designed for a very different cultural context. It's something that wants people to increasingly unplug when the world wants us to be more and more plugged in. Religion, another human structure that supports human connection, is, as statistics show, slowly dying. So, one answer to this may be technology. Interestingly, technology is one of the most universally accessible cultural constructs on the planet. Religion, music, food, language, these all are incredibly divisive. They don't translate from one culture to another, from one country to another. But over 90% of the planet has an active cell phone account. So my question is, how do we create secular, science-based tools that are designed to increase human connection, compassion, and unconditional love on a global scale? And the good news is I actually think this is well underway. You have research institutions and researchers around the world beginning to explore what empathy, compassion, and connection look like in the brain and in the body. Where I teach at Stanford, we have the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education. And they actually bring in folks that have spent, in some cases, tens of thousands of hours cultivating profound sense of compassion and loving kindness in ways that are really hard to imagine. And they actually study what that looks like in the brain. But the science is just the first step. I'll give you some examples. Researchers in Brazil have actually taken this scientific understanding and trained people how to change those parts of the brain. What they do is they put them inside of a machine called an fMRI machine. And this is $1 million piece of equipment that actually allows you to see what's happening inside the brain in real time. But they don't just stop there. They actually, as you're inside the machine, show you a screen where the screen gives you a real-time graph of what's happening in the compassion part of your brain. You can think of this as technology-assisted self-awareness. But the incredible thing about it, and what they've shown and what others who have done similar work has shown, is that by doing this, you can actually learn to change that part of your brain. We're actually seeing a whole bunch of virtual reality applications around empathy. There's a project called The Enemy, which is a collaboration between journalists and a lab at MIT. And what they're doing is they're actually allowing people to step inside the shoes of both Palestinian soldiers and Israeli soldiers, to actually get a sense of what's below the conflict, to get a feeling for the level of humanity. And they're doing this one by one for every major conflict in the world. And I'm actually working on my own technologies. I'll give you one example. We call it the Group Flow Project. The way that it works is we take up to 24 people and we connect them to sensors that measure their heart. We take that data and we funnel it all into a central computer. And we analyze it for patterns that have to do with connection, group flow, and trust. But then we do something different. We take that data and we turn it into a real-time changing soundscape. So the entire group can actually hear how connected they are and how it changes in real time. And the hypothesis here for this experimental platform is that you can actually begin to train groups how to become more deeply connected, more trusting, and more creative. There's a sense that this is just the beginning. What happens when we get better and better and better at doing this, right? This is the natural innovation curve. It's exponential. What happens when we can recreate tens of thousands of hours of meditation or years of therapy and actually catalyze that depth of experience in a matter of minutes? And what happens when that's available not just to 10 people sitting in a room? Or, as we're going to talk about today, 1,000 people at the same time. But what happens when that is at the scale of millions or billions? Could we see a radical shift in collective human consciousness in a very short time? So for me, this is not just about an optimistic look of what I would like the world to be. And it's not because I think that we just need more technology for the sake of it. And I'm also not doing this because I think that human beings are incapable of connecting without technology. The reason I'm doing this is because when I look around, what I see is technology becoming increasingly ubiquitous. I see the next generation being born into a world where devices will mediate almost every aspect of their lives. But it's not just about there being more technology. It's that this technology is becoming more potent. Innovations like brain stimulation, biometric wearables, and virtual reality will be able to more significantly influence the way we think, feel, and live than any other invention mankind has ever created. I don't think we actually have a choice about whether this technology will emerge or whether it will have the capacity to influence. But I do think we have a choice about how we design that technology. One possibility is that we huddle together on trains or pass each other on the street, immersed in our devices, together, but alone. Another possibility is that we use this technology to fuel an evolutionary leap, to connect us in ways we could never imagine, to perhaps become something greater than the sum of our parts, together as one. Thank you.